He's the man with the music and the mischief, a maestro of mayhem, a writer, a rocker, and now a rambunctious rascal of the afterlife. Today on the front row, I'm joined by the endlessly inventive Eddie Perfect, the somewhat twisted brain behind the black and white suited bioexorcist Beetlejuice. Yes, he wrote the songs. Yes, he's singing them nightly at Melbourne's Regent Theatre. And yes, he somehow makes death look fun. We're going to be talking comedy, composing, chaos, and climbing inside the striped skin of a character who's outrageous, offensive, and I've got to say, oddly therapeutic. Welcome, Eddie Perfect.
Thank you. Great intro there, Josh Piterman. I loved
love a good intro. Got to do a good intro. And it's like, I'm not just going to hit your bio because we'll be here for an hour, mate. Eddie, you're not just playing. I know you've been probably asked this question in various ways. You're not just playing Beetlejuice, you're playing your Beetlejuice. What's it like stepping into a character you wrote and then having to match the manic energy that you decided at some point at midnight to put onto a page?
It's been kind of an experience in humility and karma.
What's karmic about it?
Well, I wrote it like a person who was pretty confident they were never going to have to sing it. So as a consequence, there's nowhere to breathe, and it's all my fault, and no one will listen to me whinge because what are they gonna do? And I wrote the score very early on in the creation and the development of Beetlejuice the Musical. We had our first sort of actors workshop, and I met Alex Brightman, who played Beetlejuice on Broadway, and he was with us all the way through the workshopping process. And so almost immediately I had Alex Brightman's voice in my head. Anyone that doesn't know Alex Brightman, he's an extraordinary comedic singer, actor from New York. He's done a bunch of stuff. He was Dewey Finn in School of Rock. He's kind of youngish guy. He's little, his brain and his mouth goes super fast, and he, very quickly found a way into the character. And in this fearless way where I just would go, okay, I know I can get away with this. I can write this and I can bring it into the room and give it to Alex and he will make it work. And so, it very quickly, although, in the original demos, it's me trying to work out what does Beetlejuice sing like? What does he sound like? But very quickly it became Alex's gig. And so, it's just like a donkey that you load up with more and more, more and more sandbags. You're like, oh, maybe you can do that. Oh, can you do that? Can you do that while you're doing that? And Alex is just like, yep. And it was so extraordinary. So when it was like, do you want to do Beetlejuice? I was like, yeah. And there's this weird thing where it feels like I can do Beetlejuice because I wrote it, but I actually have no I'm like, none of the writing of Beetlejuice was helpful in the slightest way when it came to performing the role of Beetlejuice. I was like, this is a whole new thing. I didn't even know how to, and it's made weird because even people inside the process figured I knew how to play Beetlejuice, but I've never played the role. I was always an outside eyes and ears, like what is the whole show looking and sounding like? And now I'm like, who is Beetlejuice and what is Beetlejuice the role? And so when I started on day one, we had brilliant associate director Katie Davis, brilliant associate choreographer Michael Fadiga, and they were like, I've been working with these guys for like 5 years as a writer, and there's a different power balance when you're the actor. You kind of, it's kind of weird. You go from being like, this is equal to like, not like less equal, but like you become a different species almost. It's kind of like cats and dogs in a room. You're like, there's no reason you can't like each other, but there's a bit of it. When you're an actor, you hang with the actors, you eat with the actors, you talk to the actors, you have breaks with the actors, and the creative team is a different thing. And so I was on the creative team, and now all of a sudden I'm with this weird group that I know that they're talking about, like, oh, why can't Buggerlugs, get this box step or why, And so on the first day, I remember Michael Fadiga said to me, how do we do this? Like we were doing staging the whole Being Dead thing, just me. And I'm like, I don't know. I just think you just have to pretend like I didn't write the show and then I'm just an actor, because that is what I'm doing right now. And even when I'm in the show, I don't every now and then I have a precursory thought about, I wrote this show. But I'm not thinking about it like that. I just think about it like from an actor's.
I wrote this show.
Yeah, but I don't.
I've got to do that.
Yeah, it's a lot. And I actually find it's the most challenging thing I've ever done on stage by a very long way.
You're playing so many different incarnations of a human in what, like it traverses style.
The better it is. There's no guardrails. It's like you just have to be totally free with it. And for the longest time in rehearsals, I just was like, it was not like you don't come into the room like loose and just kind of flopping all over the place. You come into the room going, okay, this is the choreography of it. This is the blocking of it, like the physical movements of where I need to be on stage. This is the prop I'm pulling out. This is the magic I'm doing. This is the ukulele I'm catching. This is the fake hand I'm high-fiving. This is the sandworm that's coming out here. This is the tail over here. This is when I jump on the coffin. This is when I pull cocaine out of my sleeve and put it on. You know, it is wild the amount of really dense and constant and complex choreography there is in the role, in everyone's role. That's the way the show is designed. Really technical. So and actually for the longest time, it just sucked. It was just like I was just sucking for
because you
ages.
want to be wild and free and loosey-goosey, and you've got to do all the technical work and nail that before it gives you permission to be wild and free. Yeah.
And there's this weird thing where like, my wife will kill me because she's
Hey, Lucy.
She's a psychologist. She knows about the brain. Hopefully this is true, but she'll tell me if it's not. I feel like when you start, everything is in the front bit of your brain. Like
prefrontal cortex.
Yeah, like just don't get that card out of your pocket here.
Well,
or you need to
but that's where like focus and memory and all this sort of stuff exists. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's occupying, it's like on it's on the hard drive and it's occupying a lot of RAM. So there's not a lot of RAM left over like to just, be thinking about performance. Of course there is a little bit of that, but it's all blended in with this very complex dance that you're thinking about. Don't bump into that. Jump up here. When do I put this in my pocket? When do I take this jacket off? And that's happening over the course of 2.5 hours. So it's really intense. And then as you do it more and more and more and you run, and especially when you do it in front of an audience and then that's a whole new thing. Where are they responding? It starts to journey back into like the more lizardy long-term memory part of your brain. And then all of a sudden this space frees up and you aren't thinking, now left foot does this. Now I go underneath the thing. Now I have to pull flowers out of me. Have I preset confetti? It's bonkers. And you can just get on with being free with it and just hope that it's there. Not always there. There are little moments where it's like, the other day, especially we're doing 2 shows and then the Saturday night, I just changed one word accidentally, but it was an important word. It was a word that Rob Johnson, my scene partner, had to repeat in his next line. And he did a really great job of switching to back me up because he's an incredible improvisatory performer. But it just jumped my memory train off the tracks. And then and I boldly marched downstage to do this next part. And I had absolutely no idea what the lines were, where I was. And there was a moment that felt like 4 years of absolute panic where I was like, I absolutely have no idea. I don't even remember, the mise-en-scène of looking out in the audience and the lights and like, I just, everything is so unfamiliar. I think I might be having like a stroke. And then but I knew how to start the song. So I started the song. I thought I'd maybe missed 3 pages of dialogue. And it was like literally one line, but it was just a little like speed bump.
Yeah.
And my brain was like,
how did you cope with that afterwards? Are you good at letting that go?
I needed to find out what I'd done. I needed to logically find out what I'd done. And then and then put it together. It was, memory. I've never studied how memory works. A lot of people say, how do you remember all those lines? It is crazy because when you stand side stage and you're about to go on, when you're performing a show, you don't think, oh, I better run through these lines.
They're just in a filing cabinet
They're
there
like
waiting.
but you have to trust that.
Yeah.
Like maybe, and that can go away. Like if you've had a break from a show and then you've come back to it and you're like, I feel like and then there's also some people are like, oh, I can remember, a monologue of these scenes from every play. I can't remember anything about the stuff that I've done. I have little flashes of what it looked like or what was happening in my life.
Of previous shows?
The script, score, everything.
Forgotten. Forgotten. Even like go away for 2 weeks on the West End for holidays and you come back and do your first show and you're like, it's all like, what? You have to go over it before. Like that's.
I did South Pacific. I did like 120 performances of South Pacific in 2014. And I didn't have a huge amount to do. I was playing Billis. And I'm like, I can't remember a single. I used to do scenes with Kate Sobrano as Bloody Mary, and it was wild. I remember there being a boar's tooth, and then it led into There's Nothing Like a Dame, which was the funnest thing to sing on stage. But I can't remember anything. I can hardly remember. I don't think I can remember the lyrics to There's Nothing Like a Dame. It's just vanished.
I'm so glad that you don't need it though. So tonight you need Beetlejuice. You don't. Hey, how do you go?
Well, now I'm like, is it there?
It's there. It's there. How do you go with Eddie Imperfect?
I'm very kind to myself.
So you just treat yourself with compassion.
I'm very kind to myself, and I think
Do you see the comedy in that?
What's that?
Do you see the comedy in that? Do you can you zoom out and just laugh at yourself?
Yeah, I think so. I think, if you go, everyone makes mistakes. I have a little I have a little kind of like non-denominational prayer that I say to myself before I go on stage. And it's always the same thing. It's always like, trust all of the work that you've done. Be free. Be clear. And it's like, just listen and respond and be curious and be in the moment. Performing for me sort of feels like when it's right, it feels like you've just like jumped out of a plane. It's like, and you don't want to be walking around going, "Ooh, I better do this now." It needs to kind of have a wildness about it. And the character of Beetlejuice is like, when you write a show, you have a relationship with all of the characters and the whole world of it. Like that's your job. You got to look after every single thing that's happening on stage. But when you're an actor, you kind of like go, well, who's Beetlejuice, And I've found that really fun because one thing we found really quickly in Washington, D.C. was that Beetlejuice is a pretty dark character and you get a lot more of him in the musical than you do in any other form, especially, in the movies, I guess, what I'm talking about. There's a little bit of Beetlejuice is one thing, but a lot of Beetlejuice requires like, well, what's his character going to be? What's his comedy engine going to be? Is he going to be up there? Like, Beetlejuice has like monologues that are kind of like stand up, but you also have to find, you kind of can't make it like inconsequential jokes. It's got to stay on the tracks of like, well, what is happening here? And what I love about Beetlejuice is that he is just like he just wants to be part of it. He wants to be seen. He wants people to like him, and he wants to belong. And he starts off invisible, and then he wants to feel all the things that the humans feel. He wants to be in the club, and that's a super fun character to play because I basically just go, I just want everyone on stage to like me.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing about the show. Like from Dead Mum to Say My Name and some other song, What I Know Now. Like there's like, we can say all this stuff about the comedy, but there's genuine heart in the show.
Yeah, well, it's an important show for me. It's a lot of myself and my family, especially my wife Lucy's life tied up in the character of Lydia, and especially, well, the observations about grief and death and the insights are all Lucy's.
Really?
And in fact, Lucy is responsible for. I mean, Lucy is like, apart from being my wife and being an amazing person, she's incredibly useful and intelligent person to speak to about my work. She has such an exceptional analysis, and that comes from the fact that, she's a very high up senior strategist in the advertising industry, and then has completely retrained and is now a clinical psychologist. And she's very good at analyzing any kind of piece of communication and understanding the context of it and what is being said and whether I'm saying it.
Yeah, I'm sure she's very psychoanalytical of it.
It's great. Well, she's just like...
That's a part of... Yeah.
And so, she lost her mother in a car accident when she was 8 years old and grew up without her mother. And so a lot of that experience of grief, you're invisible when you're sad, all that stuff is Lucy. And so I was really, it's a kind of a weird vampiric sort of vulture type way to look at it. But as a writer, like, her generosity allowed Lydia to be a properly formed character. And, her story is at the heart of Beetlejuice. And the rest of it is just a function of creating comedy so that these very difficult, uncomfortable conversations around grief, death, dying, and how to live when you've lost someone can be less awkward. And that's why I love comedy, I think, because I think you can say some pretty serious things if you're making people laugh.
Has that always been your way?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Comedy is the great uniter, and I think comedy at its heart is irreverent. Like, the best comedy, or is the person that can tell it like it is and tell the truth. Black comedy is a way of accessing, I don't know, a part of our lives and our psyche that I think is there. I think everybody has dark thoughts, and we learn to control them. But black comedy really sort of like takes you to the edge and shocks you with stuff. And we just thought, well, if we can give people permission to laugh at grief, death, and dying in the opening number of Beetlejuice the Musical, and tell them it's a show about death, then this taboo-busting character of Beetlejuice will make sense, and we'll be able to say something kind of pretty serious if we can make people laugh.
Was that a part of the embryo of the show, or did that sort of emerge as you were in the throngs of writing?
I wasn't there for the embryo. I came along, I kind of heard about Beetlejuice being up for pitch at a point when the script had been in development for 3 years with Scott Brown and Anthony King, who are the book writers. They'd been employed by Alex Timbers, the director, produced by Warner Brothers Theatricals, to kind of go, well, how do we take this IP, Warner Brothers IP of Beetlejuice, and make it a musical? And they'd been, they'd landed on the reorientation of the story to be about Lydia having lost her mother and that experience of grief kind of leading us through the show. And they also had to work out a way to make Beetlejuice this kind of unreliable narrator, so that, unlike in the film where it's maybe like 40-something plus minutes before Beetlejuice shows up, like, Beetlejuice is there, right from the beginning. And we had many iterations of that, how to open the show, his first line from behind the newspaper, like all that stuff. That evolved and that changed a lot. But that process had been going for 3 years, and then they obviously were looking for a composer lyricist at about the time that I was just sort of going to New York. I had just finished writing some songs for Strictly Ballroom the Musical, which was Baz Luhrmann's adaptation of his movie, and I was one of many songwriters for that. But I still wrote a bunch of songs for that, and it was a really amazing experience. But I was dissatisfied when it ended because even though it was a great experience writing songs for a commercial musical, and it wasn't my score. And, Baz would contact me and say, hey, here's a brief for a song. But I didn't have the script. I didn't know the song before. I didn't know what the song was coming after. What do you do? Is this going to be a ballad? Do I swing for the fences? What's the energy of the act? Where are we going musically? They're the things when you're writing a score, you're like, well, no, this song doesn't have to be, a production number. It's actually probably the point at which the audience is ready for something quiet. And so I just felt like I was like I had an arm tied behind my back. And I liked the songs that I wrote for that, but I just wasn't in the room. I wasn't on the team. And, I grew up with like kind of idolizing that. There's a great photo of Stephen Sondheim and Leonard Bernstein on a couch in a hotel room in the out of town tryouts for out of town production of West Side Story, and like they're burning the midnight candle, like trying to come up with that idea. And there's at the heart of that is collaboration, but also what is inside it is this extraordinary commitment to creating a piece of art with your.
You know what? Let's repeat the same girl's name 27 times. Now that'll be a song. That'll be a hit. They'll love it.
Yeah, and it is.
It is a hit, even though Sondheim always said he hated it.
Ingrained in popular culture, one of the greatest scores and with the greatest songs of all time. And, I wanted that. Like, I wanted that experience. So not taking anything away from the strictly ballroom, the musical experience, but I just wanted ownership. And I wanted a proper kind of like musical collaboration. And so I'd whinge to Lucy, and Lucy said, buy a ticket and go to New York. And I did. And I just literally just went to New York and saw theatre. And I had no plan, but I would reach out to people. Has anyone got anyone I could meet? And I met all sorts of people. And I would go back every sort of like 6 months to get on that, like, how do you become a Broadway composer lyricist? Like, how do you... I am not like I'm actually asked. I had no fucking idea how to do it. I'd sit in musicals and I'd go, "Can I write like that? Like, can I write as good as that?" And that's a confronting thing too, because you're like, I don't want to bullshit myself. I'm sitting there going,
but also comparison, like, you're not going to write like Stephen Sondheim because it's Stephen Sondheim.
Well,
like, you're going to write like Eddie.
That's right, and and it's I've thought about like Broadway a lot, obviously, over my life, and it wasn't until later in when I've been out doing performing, writing, comedy, like the combination of words and music and acting and understanding theatre, and doing that for a while. So I felt like New York kind of came when I was ready, but it didn't mean I knew how to like get a gig. And Tim Minchin said to me, Beetlejuice is in development and they're looking for a composer lyricist. And I was like, holy shit, I got to find out about that. And I managed to get an agent by that time, a fantastic agent by the name of John Bizzetti, King of Broadway. He's an extraordinary guy. And who took me on board, even though all I had to give him was Shane Warne. I gave him Shane Warne the Musical, the cast recording, and then I gave him, as if like an Australian musical about Australian cricketer isn't niche enough for a New York agent. I also gave him, because that's all I had, the album Songs from the Middle, which is about my suburb, Melbourne suburb of Mentones. Even that's a box inside a box. I was like, this is what I have. I'm sorry, it's very Australian.
But that song about Daryl Cullinan, like, surely you know him. surely you know he's a buddy.
Like, what? Cricket? What? Shane Warne? I don't know, but like, I like your vibe. And so he took me on, which is crazy. John Bizzetti, what an amazing guy. Also, not just like sounds like bragging, but it is cool. He represents
Pick up the tickets. Come on, pick them up.
He represents Tim Minchin. He represents Lin-Manuel Miranda, Tom Kitt. You know, like he's been behind the creation of Broadway's most successful musicals, and he's been. I never really talked about Bizzetti probably before. I'm sure he won't mind me saying this. Is like he's so he's as an agent, he's responsible very much for shepherding the development, creation, and the conditions under which contemporary Broadway musicals can be made, even complex ones like Hamilton, and was there all the way through the creation of Book of Mormon. You know, like there's these amazing human beings in New York who are part of the Broadway fabric, and so I was very lucky that he saw something in my writing.
So when he said, with whatever words he used, I really like your stuff, I believe in you, did that shift your perspective to go, oh, now I know how to be a Broadway composer, now I feel like I can do this?
No, it was a relief because I felt like it was it was a foothold in New York. An agent with eyes and ears out for me, a very influential agent with eyes and ears out on what is happening. So I felt very lucky to have somebody like that in my corner. But I also, like, I'm an unknown guy from Australia. Like, he might have seen something in my work, but I still have to be in the process of showing him what I can do. And one of those big things was that I can write any story, whether it's Australian or American. I can write to a brief. I can collaborate with people, and I can realize songs for the musical theatre in an interesting and I think unique way. I know that about my writing, but I didn't know that he knew that about my writing. I just think. He was like, I'll give it a go with this guy. You know what I mean? But that's also, I'm 47 now. I'm always proving myself. It's exhausting. It's like it's almost like you got to keep proving yourself. But that's just the way it was.
Do you still feel like that?
Yeah.
Do you feel like that when you're out there every night?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, all the time. I don't know whether it's an unhealthy feeling, but it never leaves me. And I think everything I've done has either been like a step up or a sideways step into some other kind of world, and every time I'm like, I'm new, I feel very new here. I feel like I have to prove myself.
It's so interesting, and yet, from the outside looking in, and I see your journey, and I've watched the arc of your journey for over 20 years. I've never thought that you'd be anything other than completely self-assured, and that was a part of why you were why I feel like you're a really humble guy. Like, we've talked about you on other episodes of this, and how it never seems to get to you, but that often happens when you're at a level where you go, well, I don't feel so attached to this because I am a deal, and I don't care about the big deal that I am. So yeah, I don't identify as this. And yet you're still out there going, I got to prove myself as this.
I guess I'm a kind of a weird combination of incredibly ambitious and but I'm also pretty relaxed.
Yeah.
But I'm not like, they're a weird comment. What do I mean by relaxed? I mean, I'm not always relaxed. I don't know. I just have like an urgency to make stuff. And it's a natural thing, I think, to always feel like you're coming up or you're moving into different places. And I mean, you want to talk about like people pleasing, Jesus Christ. I thought the pitch process on Beetlejuice, which I asked about and they originally said no, but again, Bizzetti was like, they don't want to spend more money. And I was like, I don't give a fuck about money. I don't need money to write these demos. Like, I'll do it for free. And so he put that to the creative team and they magically just went, oh, okay. And now all of a sudden, I'm so glad I was like, I'm so glad I pushed back because they just sent me the script and then I read the script. The script was already like I laughed about 50 times every page. It was so funny. And it's not even the funny that's in the script now. It was almost like a completely different script in the beginning. Scott and Anthony, their writing is so brilliant and so funny. And the rare times I got to see them write, they're old buddies. They write in almost, they grew up in the UCB. I think Anthony was one of the founding members of Upright Citizens Brigade, and improv is a huge part of both of their performance styles. They wrote Gutenberg the Musical together. That was a musical they performed together. And when they wrote, they improvised with each other. It was super cool. And they're very generous and unbelievably rigorous writers. And so I was like, holy smokes, this is great. And I immediately sort of started to formulate what they wanted, which was a song for Beetlejuice and a song for the character of Lydia. And the Beetlejuice song was like, oh my God, it was just a really interesting creative journey to go on writing that song. Again, I haven't ever really said this stuff out loud. It's weird because like I'm such a solitary writer that I can get away with like having these quite like these relationships with these songs that I write. And then I just never talk to anyone about it. So that's kind of weird. Anyway, Whole Being Dead thing was like, I was listening to a lot of like, straight away, it's the comedy on the page is fast. And what makes Beetlejuice, the character, funny is that he is not one thing. He is like a vessel for a million personalities, and every one of them is trying a different way to get what he wants, which is, validation, love, acceptance, visibility, So I'm like, if I start a song in one groove and it stays in the same groove, it's going to completely destroy the pattern of comedy that's been created by Scott and Anthony. And so I started like listening to, I've played in bands where we pulled contemporary songs apart and put them back together with different time signatures. And it was like a little nerdy, but also a fun thing to do because it meant like, playing across a huge amount of musical styles, which I really love.
I mean, the opening itself is like...
Yeah, so I just stuffed, I don't know, as many different genres of music as I could into the Whole Being Dead thing. And it was a little unwieldy. It was like I was just adding, an ensuite and then a bungalow, and I was like, that didn't really make any design sense, and then had to keep kind of like bounce it down off Logic. I'd send it to my phone, I'd listen to it while walking, the streets of Melbourne at night. I'd come and take things away and add things in. And the whole time I'm like, this is an insane song. And also, this is like my one shot. I've been going to New York for 18 months, face pressed against the glass. How do I get on that? How do I get in there? And I'm like, this is a shot. And I thought, okay, the best, it'll put my writing under the nose of a Broadway director and Alex Timbers. It'll show my agent I can write to an American brief. And, I might not be right for this one, but there might be other stuff down the line. And at least, I'm doing it, I'm pitching. So to get the job was really wild because I'd not met anyone. And
I have no idea. Oh, I
like, how did they not know that I didn't just have like a basement full of writers that were like writing for me? Like
totally.
They didn't know anything about my acting.
ChatGPT wrote it all for you.
Yeah. They were like,
I just made the assumption, which is terrible for me to make, is that you just knew them. And so they spoke to you and said, hey, you should come along and write this. I didn't know that you had to tender and pitch and go through this process of like, this is your journey into Broadway from unknown to known.
And I didn't know who else was in the pitch process, but I've since heard, I'm not going to say, but they were really good writers, really, really good writers. And I was completely unknown to them.
Don't dangle that carrot. You can't say, I'm not going to name them and then talk about the big. Okay, of course.
I'll just do it. Well, it was, they were big, heavy hitting Broadway writers. And then there's this dude with a weird name, the Australian guy. And they gave the gig to me. And I had to I was like, I'm just going to fly and meet them. So Lucy and I flew to New York into a blizzard, as it turned out, to meet the people that I've been writing.
Did you and Lucy just like take a moment to take stock of that?
Oh yeah, it was the best. It was the best. And then you're like, oh, now I've got to actually write it.
Yeah.
But that was so. The experience of writing Beetlejuice was, an extraordinary as a theatrical experience, but also just from a craft and skill songwriting point of view. I'm a better writer from having written Beetlejuice, having worked on Beetlejuice. A lot of that was like just brought about by the rigor of a creative development with Alex Timbers. And I could talk for hours having watched how he builds a Broadway show and how he is the conduit between so many incredible designers and creatives on the team. And like it's a lot of people on Beetlejuice. So there's obviously lighting design, there's set design, there's brilliant costume design, but there's a magic designer, there's a physical movement designer, there's Michael Curry and his incredible puppetry design, and then there's all of the video projection design that goes into it. And Alex Timbers had to sit at the center of all of those worlds and keep developing and crafting this piece. And the way he directs is interesting. It's like kind of almost like manipulates the energy of the audience. It's always about where the energy and the mood and the feeling is, when to make it thrilling. And he's so intuitive and to the audience and the kind of temperature in the audience. Anyone that's seen Moulin Rouge, the musical, will know that it's built on energy and vibe. And, Beetlejuice follows similar patterns. And when I'd first gone to New York, coincidentally, I'd seen his production of Rocky at the Winter Garden Theatre, which is extraordinary and includes a boxing ring that came out, pushed out over the front of the audience, and then the audience sat in the round. It was an extraordinary piece of design and theatrical engineering. And then downtown at the Public Theatre, I saw his production of Here Lies Love, which was the Imelda Marcos musical that he directed with David Byrne and Fatboy Slim score, and it's set in a Filipino nightclub, like a karaoke bar nightclub in Manila, and it was really immersive, and you sort of moved around the space, and it was sort of immersive theatre, but done in such an intelligent way. It was incredible to watch him make a Broadway musical. Like, man, it takes really smart people.
Yeah, and you mentioned how into improv he is. In watching it, he breaks the fourth wall more than he breaks moral codes. I feel like Beetlejuice. How much of that are you going, I've got my 5 versions of this I can play with, or this is the one version, I'm just doing my best to keep it fresh, or am I going, I'm just riffing. I'm actually improving this because it felt improvisational,
which is great. Yeah, and it's like there's a little bit that's improv, but a lot of it is it's really constructed.
Yeah, okay.
From underscore to transitional changes to there's a real it's like for a long time I felt like I was just being dragged by a horse around a paddock. That's what performing the show felt like. It just goes, and you're either getting dragged by the horse, or now finally I feel like I'm riding the horse. It's a wild ride. But within the script, there are definitely moments, built out a couple of moments where things can be improvised, but I'm always finding different ways to perform it. But it needs to keep going. So it becomes a taste thing about how much you improvise because it's spinning plates. And if you allow the speed to slow down, those plates really start to wobble and you lose an audience. So a lot of it is about being ahead of the audience. And I think that's what Beetlejuice the Musical does really well, is it has moments of pathos, but then that's totally undercut by comedy, but it's always moving because it has to make an unreal world feel believable. And it sort of does that through a lot of things, including chaos.
Yeah, there's a lot of chaos in the show.
It's tightly controlled chaos. It's like a symphony orchestra of chaos. It's
I keep
really
coming back to Deo with like, how much is Eddie just laughing through situations as opposed to like, are you on there ever not as Beetlejuice, just laughing at what you created here? Because as almost like as an audience member on stage, just watching things going, this is so funny.
It is. It's wild. Like,
are you in it that much that now you can remove yourself from it while still being in it?
I know when Deo happens, I have a pretty quick wig and beard color change, but I always make it back side stage by the time the song starts. And from my view, where I enter on, I can see the pig cart with the roast pig on it. I can see
ridiculous
the Maitlands and Lydia on top of the stairs, and I can see Charles with the salad bowl over his crotch just grinding away. And I do often think, this is really weird. My job's really weird. That's what I'm doing tonight. I'm doing this.
So that's what you have to do side stage. What's your what's backstage like for you? What's between shows like for you? You do 2 a day a couple of times a week.
Yeah.
What are your little rituals and routines that get you out there that keep you sort of safeguard you between shows? How do you lead a company whilst you still got to think with a composer's hat on, with a leading player's hat on? Like, how do you manage the whole thing?
I can't talk about the 2-show thing because I just don't know. I don't know what to do. I don't know.
You haven't worked it out.
I haven't worked it out. I've tried everything. I've tried like having a nap, not having a nap, having dinner, not having dinner, having a little snack, that's the wrong snack. You know, like, should I have a hot shower? Should I keep singing? Should I rest? Should I, it's really hard because.
Did you ever call Alex and go, hey mate, what did you do here?
I feel like he's just superhuman, that dude. Like, he, for a start, he's like a tenor and I'm a bass baritone. So I, a lot of it is really like getting up there for me. And it just means you sort of have to be on top of your game every show, which is fine. And even though I'm singing in this kind of crazy, like just distorted way, and the speaking voice is really kind of like distorted as well. And it has this kind of crazy range and like heaps of rasp. And I am fine doing 1 a night, but just 2, I just find really hard. I'm like, you got to get it all back. It's really difficult. But, it always comes back. As for leading the company.
So hold up. If every single version in the end works in some way, the no sleep to sleep, the not eat to eat, there's no one that you like more if they're all going to end up working for you?
Not really. The common denominator is you got to do it. So, you just end up doing it. At the moment, I'm not, not that it's working that well, but I just, I'm like a shark. I got to keep moving. You know what I mean? So no napping. Don't eat too much food. It's just like bananas and movement.
You just got this dude sprinting in the alleyways.
And I just keep it all going. Okay. That's keep the plate spinning. That's how I do it. Yeah.
And then onto leadership, leading the company.
Okay. This is what's really nice about Beetlejuice, but also strange. I am the oldest person in the cast. What? For the first time in my life, I am the most senior person. I'm 47 years old.
How does that feel?
And like, I feel like I'm under 50, so I'm not like, oh my God, I'm so old. But it feels like it's happened a little earlier than I thought it would. You know what I mean? And so I've always had this very clear perception of how the culture of a theatrical show is set, and it always gets set by how the more senior people behave in the process. If the people with seniority are like disgruntled or embittered or tired or, have lost the sort of spark, it can be a real bummer, and younger actors always pick up on it. And it can it can be corrosive, or it can just, and it's no shade on the times that I've seen people do that, but I always have it in mind that, you need to lead by example, and you actually uh, as a senior actor, especially one in a leading role where you've got a lot to do, if you can sort of assert sounds like a stronger word than it needs to be, but let's just go with that. A kind of an atmosphere that helps me work. Like for me, that is a place where we try anything, where we just 100% focus. It's like we've got to be laughing and enjoying as we're making a comedy, like total play, total commitment, and that. And so I find that if you just lead with that, you just start working like that, then everybody else that's where it is, And I think there was also a sense of like, oh, this is Eddie's show and he owns it. And I really wanted to just be an actor in the show. And to be honest, I don't really think about the writing of it at all. Like as I said earlier, I just think about acting it and, basic things, you at warm up, you're really committed in warm up at, talking to everybody, checking in with everybody, and
genuinely caring. And
you're not complaining and all that, making work a positive, fun environment because, there's nothing worse than doing a comedy where everyone's just tired and sad. Like, totally. I think everybody in Beetlejuice we're just all like so chuffed that people like it. It's great. It's great to go out there and have a big audience laugh every night. So it's like it's a very happy place to go to work.
Yeah. It is, like we talk about a lot, it's really funny, but it's a very particular type of comedy. And I've said this to people, since seeing it who haven't seen it. I'm like, you'll laugh so much, but there's different threads of comedy that are getting pulled on and different characters turn the knob in different ways. You're very different to Delia, for example, but equally wanted to make little wheeze in my pants. Like,
yeah.
So funny. Were you involved in the casting process?
Yeah, we're involved in every process. It was very collaborative.
So how do you go, like, what were you looking for in certain things as you're casting that?
The way Scott and Anthony write comedy is really interesting. There's nothing negative or mean in it, and it requires actors to play massively big, connected choices that are often so ludicrous, but they are not aware of how ludicrous they are. They can't see their foibles. It's
all in truth. It's like Seinfeld.
I mean, they're like idiots. I mean, they're not idiots. They're like us. Like we can't see our own stuff. So, and that's what makes it funny is that there's no sort of not a everybody's trying to make something positive happen. And everybody's making offers, and the offers are insane. And the way where people go about getting connection and love is just so bonkers in the show. But it requires like a real forward comedy engine. It's and a kind of like a momentum all the way through stuff, and then a great sense of timing. And we found that it's really hard for actors to do. All the characters are really funny, but they're all, let's just say, really funny in different ways. And so you end up just kind of like finding, I feel like in our Australian cast, we've found actors who are like their characters in some deep, profound way. There's some center of them. Obviously, they're very different, but there's a sort of a center about them. Like Rob Johnson is so beautiful and so present and warm, and that's all the way through his Adam Maitland, Erin Clare, who was probably one of the funniest people I've ever met. Like she's a genuinely hilarious person off stage, is extraordinarily funny on stage because she's just an extraordinary comic actor. She does just brilliant chops and she can sing.
And Andy Conahan's a wonderful life coach.
Andy Conahan.
Yeah, and he fits it so well.
I love the cast. I just think we're really lucky, and it's not easy to cast, but when you find people that suit it, it's such a joy.
And audiences like just froth for it. It's developed this real like cult following. Did you see that happening? And like, what's your response to sort of TikTok craze and the mega fandom that comes backstage? I saw a picture, maybe it was a preview or something of Flinders Lane, and performed at the Regent a few times. I've never come out to stage door and seen a bombardment of people like that. It's sort of on another level.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's I guess my reaction to it is always a combination of like relief, gratitude, and surprise, because we opened in Washington DC and development had been so extraordinary and the response had been so extraordinary. We opened in Washington DC and immediately get these terrible reviews, and it meant that we had to kind of come together and really talk about what our piece was about at its heart and what was important to keep and what was important to lose. And we went through that script page by page, song by song, line by line, lyric by lyric. And that was where we really landed on this concept of this thematic motif of home. And it's weird making musicals. It's like it takes a really long time to make discoveries. Like you think, you'll get to a point where you can just make all the discoveries about your show and put it on. But you learn what your show is as you're writing it and as you see it. And one thing that happens is when it's in front of an audience, you learn totally different things. And our DC audience, we started to get like an incredible sort of repeat audience. Audience would come back multiple times in Washington, D.C. But the show kind of like punched people in the face, and then half the audience were either like, yeah, we love that, we're on the ride, and the other half are like, everything about this show I hate. And we just decided that the complexity of the show and the danger of the show was not something we wanted to change. Like Beetlejuice the Musical is about busting open taboos. If we take the claws out of the tiger, it's not going to be Beetlejuice. It's going to be some weird other thing. It needs to stay shocking and surprising. And Alex Timbers, our director, very, cleverly said, we want to broaden the tent and bring more people in. And so, we rewrote the thing between DC and Broadway. And then it was much clearer and much better, but still critics were mixed with Broadway and we were in a bit of trouble. And it wasn't until the twin things of being nominated for the Tony Awards and being able to perform at the Tony Awards and being able to, bespoke rewrite the opening number to be about Beetlejuice crashing the Tony Awards. That performance, that video clip went gangbusters. Like within about a week, that CBS clip on YouTube had like 3 million views. And then we released the album, and the album really took off in places like TikTok and online. It was like what had previously been like a problem, which was the breakneck speed at which Beetlejuice happens. Like it is a very, very fast pace show, and a lot of critics had found it exhausting or baffling. But we found that it was resonating with young people whose brains just receive information at a much faster rate. And in fact, the kind of the sort of hyper elasticity of everything, chopping and changing and surprising, like it just really appealed to people.
It's like scrolling through TikTok.
Well, maybe it's an indictment on our attention spans, but there's no doubt that it, that people were doing what they'd always done, listen to musicals and imagine themselves in it. But this, suddenly with TikTok, people were putting themselves in the musical, and there would be, elaborate cosplay, incredible makeup, dancers, but also people inhabiting the characters and finding applications for them in response to things in their own lives. And so it's sort of, it took on this incredible second life on TikTok. And then I think the combination of those two things just brought people into the theatre, and then it was a totally different experience. The same show that I've been standing at the back of, watching night after night, that, people came in with a kind of like, what's this about? Now they were coming in primed to enjoy the show. I know I'm going to love this show. I love the songs. I've consumed the album. And so that was very surprising to go from that to a success. And then to bring it out to Australia, and I go and I sign at the Stage Door line, which is substantial every single night, which is unusual for like Australian musicals. And there's this huge fandom of people, especially young people in Australia, who found the album in the pandemic and just sort of got obsessed with it during the lockdowns. And they were little kids. They were like 6 or 7, and now they're like young adults. And they're like, I've been waiting my whole life for Beetlejuice to come to Australia. And I'm like, wow, that's 6 years. 6 years is for a young person is their whole life. You know what I mean? It's very sweet. So yeah, I am grateful and surprised, and it's lovely. It very nearly wasn't the case. So yeah.
It is lovely. It's wonderful, and congrats. Like it's such a beautiful thing.
Thanks.
How did you cope when you had bad reviews? How do you deal with them?
Well, all the bad reviews are wrong and all the good reviews are right.
100%. I think it was an actor once said to me, it's like, never read them because a good one is like a steroid and you'll just want another one straight away. And a bad one will sit with you for the rest of your career.
Yeah, you have to, everything has to be at arm's length with reviews. Yeah. But one thing that I'm proud about the creation of Beetlejuice was that when we got bad reviews in DC, it hurt, but we didn't all go, well, these critics are idiots and we've got something that's great, and look at the people that kept coming back night after night and they really enjoyed it. We had a weekend to lick our wounds, and then we all came back together and we looked at everything that was written, and you start to see commonalities between it. You can't read all those things without going, all right, if there's a message in there, it's being obscured by busyness. Like it's a lot of visual information. If we're hearing the same things over and over again, then, one critic can be wrong, but when multiple people are saying it, you know that it's a pattern and it's there, and you need to just get over yourself. And you need to use criticism if you can, if you're still in the writing process, to sort some stuff out. And that's what we did. And so, I was really proud that we didn't get sort of huffy about that. And then when we got mixed reviews on Broadway, we were like, well, it just is the reception that it is. And we were really lucky that we managed to find our audience in New York. A lot of it is the reason that a bad review sucks is because it can immediately affect the bottom line of your show and just mean that you can't afford to keep running and you have to close. And it's hard to hang in there on Broadway. It's a Broadway show costs hundreds of thousands of dollars per week to run, and you need to be making more than that to not be hemorrhaging money. And so that's why they close down so quickly, and why negative reviews can be really difficult, and why we were really lucky to be able to show what our show is and have people kind of return to it. And now we're in Australia, and it's so funny. It's like a hit show. Everyone believes it's a hit show. And I was up the back of the theater when it was threatening to close in a week. You know what I mean?
It's such an interesting journey.
Same show.
Yeah. Just how the lens we look at it through alters our experience of it.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to come into it going, I'm not really into this and it got some bad reviews, but I'm going to say it's a thing, you might have a certain night. But if you go, I have waited my whole life for this, and I go in there and you have the best time of your life.
What's crazy about Beetlejuice is that it wasn't all the stuff that happened with Beetlejuice was not normal, as far as I can tell. I mean, it's my first, like my first girlfriend, so I'm like, what's acceptable and what's not? You know what I mean? Like a first relationship, but it was really crazy to have that kind of turnaround. And there were articles written in like Forbes and in like financial, like even in the New York Times, trying to understand what had happened with Beetlejuice. And it was interesting to read those articles because, you know, they all saw it through a different lens. You know, they would either go, oh, they've worked out how to market the show, or they've worked out some other parameters that allow this commercial business, which is what a musical is, to go from being unsuccessful to being successful. I was sort of looking at a corporate thing, and I'm like, I don't know. I was always like, the show has always been good. It's always been a good show, but I think having a rocky start in DC, and I think just the you know the difficulty of communicating what your show is. It took us a little while to do that and to find our audience, and then when we did, it took off like a rocket, and every night in the Winter Garden Theatre was like a rock concert. It was really extraordinary.
What a great journey for a show to go on, and for you to be a part of it. I'm sure you've learnt so much about the business and yourself, and
yeah,
you know, amazing. I've got one more question before we go, Eddie. Look, there's something cathartic about the show, and you know, Beetlejuice is always saying things that push the envelope, and in that, I'm sure there's a bit of it's quite therapeutic for you to be able to say the things that maybe you can't say. But what's something that Eddie Perfect would love to say or do on stage, but hasn't?
As Beetlejuice?
As Eddie.
Oh.
Or a place that you'd like to go on stage, or something you'd like to do on stage in the future that you haven't.
I have so many things I want to do on stage. I feel like especially that my solo performing has gone from like doing everything on stage to trying to do as little as possible. I don't really vibe with I'm so appreciative of my life as doing solo comedy, and it was like an amazing university study in how to write for the stage. Because, you know, you write a comedy song and you perform it in a comedy context, you better fucking hope people are laughing, or it's an excruciating experience. And so you face down the honesty of whether your song's really funny or not, and then how to manipulate them and where to make the joke land and how to make it clear and how to use music to support the comedy and to create kind of a world. Like, you know, that was my apprenticeship, but it was very like I was quite a strident person on stage and full of very strong opinions on things. And while I still have opinions on things and I like to have fun on stage, I see more shades of grey. I'm less like
binary.
I'm less like I'm right and you're wrong. I'm like, maybe we're all idiots. You know what I mean? So my persona has changed.
So you think you're going to ask more questions rather than tell more?
I don't know if I'm going to do more solo kind of performing stuff, but I certainly have like a backlog of ideas for musicals that I want to put on stage, and some of those are Australian ideas and some of them are not. And I'm doing that right now. Like, I'm writing a musical. It's a commission from the West Australian Academy of Performing Arts, which is my old drama school. I studied musical theatre there and graduated in 2001, and they commissioned a musical from me, and it's a really exciting process because it's supposed to be this symbiotic win-win thing where a pathway to development of a new musical that I write the musical, that I develop it with the students at WAPO. I started with them 2 years ago, the cohort, when they were in first year. Last year, when they were in second year, we did more workshops. This year is their third and graduating year. And they will be the cast of this musical called Tivoli Lovely, which I've written, which is set in the Tivoli circuit of Australia, Australia's sort of version of vaudeville and music hall. Set in the Tivoli circuit in 1954, just before television came along and and ruined live variety performance in Australia. It was this whole world of Australian theatrical history that was a little, I'd seen dribs and drabs of it, but I didn't know a lot about it. And I've been reading a lot about that period of time, and it's a very interesting time theatrically. And, we very much had our own voice on stage in a variety perspective. And I think, we see a little bit of that mirrored in contemporary shows like, Australia's Got Talent or whatever, where they're essentially like variety shows. But that used to be the predominant form of entertainment. So I've written a musical set there, and we perform it at the Heath Ledger Theatre from the 7th to the 14th of November this year. The full deal, 24-piece orchestra, cast of, I think, like 40 because we're the second years.
Wow.
I always wanted to write like an Australian anything goes, like a tap dancing. I saw Hot Shoe Shuffle when I was like in my 20s. And I was like, oh my God, this is the most ridiculous plot. This plot is fucking insane. And the tap dancing is extraordinary. And I was like, wow, but I always remembered they got away with that plot. And I'll always go up to people and I go, have you seen Hot Shoe Shuffle?
No.
Rhonda Birchmore.
Oh, no, Ruda's in it.
You know the show?
Chris
Amazing.
Horsey.
Dean Perry, like all that tap era. That was our fucking river dance, man. Like, you know what I mean? And so I always wanted to write an Australian dance musical, and that's what I'm doing. So that's going on stage. That's good. And other things that I'm writing, and I'm always getting new ideas for things. And I want to develop musicals in Australia, and I think that we're entering an exciting time for musical theatre in Australia. There are a lot of really interesting writers out there. And the issue in Australia is that it's like everyone's on their own. I just feel like you look out and you go, oh, everyone's just, whether it's a Gillian Cosgriff or an Eve Blake or a Lou Wall or a Sheridan Harbridge or a Virginia Gay or Dean Brighton, Matthew Frank or, Casey Bonetto or, Michelle Brazier or Jude Pearl or whoever writing in the musical form. They're just the people that I know, and there are lots of other people around. Noticed that was like maybe almost like 100% women, that list. Mm. There are lots of really interesting writers, but everybody's making it up on their own. How do I develop a new musical? So I worry that some of those people will be lost, or they might slip away, or just, end up putting their creative energies or in places where, they're more employable or whatever. But I do hope that we start to invest more in the idea of development, because we've outsourced that entire part of making musicals for the people that make them in Australia. I don't want to pretend like we're not making musicals. We are, but I feel like every Australian musical is like is an anomaly. Somebody with an idea found a higgledy-piggledy pathway to development, and then someone to present it either on a main stage theatre company or with a commercial producer, and it's like a little miracle. You know what I mean? So there needs to be a little bit more support in how musicals are developed, but I'm very optimistic that we're entering an interesting period of time. And every time I make a musical, it's a chance to learn how to make musicals. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's what's happening in New York every day. I don't expect Australia to be, the United States of America has 345 million human beings in it.
It's a different machine, but I hope that you can, with your success and now your knowledge and wisdom, having forged a path and seen how it operates, can be a part of helping others along their journeys up the mountain of writing musicals.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of that is about I think it's in Australia because we're all spinning in our own little galaxies of, self-nurturing one-man band creatives. What's missing is the opportunity to collaborate and the conditions to collaborate, and musical theatre really thrives when it's about collaboration.
I think we do all our best work in collaboration, and there's not an organisation or business or success story that's relied on one person doing all by themselves. It just doesn't operate. We need to collaborate. We're human beings who operate best in connection. That's our thing.
But it doesn't just automatically happen. It's not easy to collaborate. and you can learn to get better at it. And it's something I hope to get better at. And the process of making theatre is, about collaborating with people and trying to share a vision and approaching that story in an interesting way. And I really hope that we just, the machines start to turn in Australia and we start to make more of our own musicals. I've certainly got a lot of ideas, and I want to live in Australia. I just want to go to New York occasionally, but I feel Australian at heart, and I also have Australian things I want to say, and I want to say them to Australian audiences. And musical theatre is my art form, and I'm too invested to do anything else now. So I'm like, I've just got to find a way to make it happen.
Well, I look forward to seeing the fruits of all your hard work and creativity. It's been so great having you on the front row, mate. Thank you.
Pleasure.